Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, the economy remains the most important issue confronting Americans, and we're going to talk about a path to your financial well-being. But first, let's take up a number of important topics with a couple of the state's leading reporters. One of them will be Governor Shapiro's priorities, and of course, education funding. We'll get to those and more after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, again, welcome back. We have a number of important topics to chat about. Joining me are two reporters who are regularly on the program. Tom Lehman, he's the Capitol reporter with WGAL News 8, and Charlie Thompson, he's with the Harrisburg Patriot News PennLive. All right, the economy, it remains the single most important issue, and there is state education funding is a critical component to the state budget. So, and there is a report out, and I'm going to ask you, Tom Lehman, to chat about the report. What's in the report, and why is it important to the folks out there?
So there was a big commission that met over the last many months trying to come up with sort of a plan, a path forward on how do we fix this big funding gap that got the state's funding system for public education here in the Commonwealth ruled unconstitutional. So this commission came up with this report that said Pennsylvania has shortchanged many schools by about $5 billion, 5.1, I believe, but it's several billion.
Poor districts, is that basically it?
Essentially, where you have property tax values that aren't keeping up with the demand for students. In some ways, a lot of people look at this as just shifting the tax burden, but with a several billion-dollar funding gap, this report said we should try to fix that incrementally over several years, but that could start as soon as this year.
So how do they fix it?
Well, I think we'll start to see the fix in Governor Shapiro's budget address for the 24-25 fiscal year, which will come out in early February.
Right.
He gave an interview to a radio station earlier this week in which he indicated that more funding for public education would be one of his priorities. And it's widely expected that this the broad recommendations of this report, which includes more money for school operations. There's a special bucket that they recommend for improvements and repair to aging school facilities and so forth.
Right.
It's widely expected that Governor Shapiro will be, as Tom said, taking incremental whacks at that over the next few years. And of course, it will always be a negotiation with Republicans who have their own top educational priority, which is school choice.
Go ahead.
And one of the interesting things is that on the day when this commission put out its report, we saw two versions of the report come out. One that was supported by the Democrats that ended up being passed. The other one, which was supported by Republicans and had some changes, one of which was that they didn't set specific money goals for year after year. And one of the reasons why is Republicans on the commission and elsewhere have said they think that this is not simply a spending issue. They don't want to see just dollar amounts attached to things. They think that there needs to be some other strategies employed, school choice among them.
Yeah.
Now, the supporters of the basic education funding report and public school advocates do see this as potentially transformative for public schools, because with this kind of money, they're saying that our lower performing, lower income districts could do a lot of things like hiring more social workers and reading specialists and counselors.
It's a tough job because it requires considerable amounts of money, given the difference in the value of the property taxes in particular in these districts, and it provides unequal funding for the schools, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, and but they'll be armed with the resources that they can actually help the education operation with community-type supports in schools.
Well, look, we're going to run to a break. I think the number 101 to 101 comes to mind. Which party will control the House of Representatives if they want to get something done, whether we're talking about education funding or Governor Shapiro's priorities? One of the Democrats, obviously the Democrats want the Democrats to win that seat. It's a Democratic seat. We'll see what happens. We'll get to that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. Well, party control of the state legislature is usually important. Charlie Thompson, 101 to 101 is
in the state house.
In the state house means even if you win either party wins one seat, that's still pretty close. And
but it is everything for the party in power. It's literally life or death for those two caucuses, because when you have the majority, you have a speaker and a majority leader who can work in tandem to basically control the flow of what gets called up for votes. You control the agenda. You control committees, which is another, big gate as to what legislation gets considered.
Yeah.
So it really means everything to the parties in terms of, are their priorities going to get heard? And
And we also have, this is an election year for House members.
Right.
And
so the whole body will come up for election in 2024. But as a teaser, next month in February, we have a special election in the 140th district in Bucks County, where the incumbent representative won a different seat in last year's election. He became a district judge. So we have a vacancy. That makes the balance of power 101. Everything is being poured into this 140th district for the next month to try to determine who has the majority in the House for the rest of this year, and that will segue into the statewide campaigns for House seats later this year to determine the majority for the last 2 years of Governor Shapiro's
And there's one public official in particular who has a great interest in this. I think his name is Josh Shapiro. He's the governor, and he has budget priorities which are particularly important.
Sure. And I think for Governor Shapiro, I think you have to look at the way that he sort of worked in tandem with House Democrats this past year to get through that whole private school voucher logjam that happened with the budget. He was able to give them the cover they needed to pass the budget, and he, in turn, line item vetoed something they didn't want. So he was able to get a budget passed. There was a lot of other budget-related stuff that happened over the next few months, but the bottom line is, I think, it's clear that he would like to continue working with a House that is controlled by Democrats. Even if it's by the narrowest of margins, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does, because as Governor Wolf had to become a governor of compromise because his whole tenure was with a legislature that was completely controlled by Republicans. Sure. And it made a difference. I mean, they got some things done.
And I'll tell you, he's very popular in the polls that have been done, and he seems willing, perhaps more than some past governors, to work with both sides of the aisle.
Well,
is that correct?
Yeah, Shapiro has embraced bipartisanship as a part of his brand. And, so he recognizes that whether the House is in Democratic control or not, there is a very solidly Republican state Senate that
Correct.
is insistent on its priorities being heard at this negotiating table too. So we're going to have swing state government.
Swing state
Either way.
government. Go ahead.
Well, the other key thing to watch out for, I mean, with the Senate Republicans in particular, is going to be, have they managed to sort of fix that rift that they had over the private school vouchers, which delayed a lot of the budget stuff for months. There was a lot of bad blood over that, especially right after Shapiro made that line item veto. But now I think the question is, with Shapiro having that first full year under his belt, now he is going to the legislature again and saying, here's my budget proposal. Is he going to get what he wants? It may be a little bit harder of a sell than it was last year, at least in the Senate.
But he doesn't seem to be vindictive. He doesn't go after his political opponents by name. He doesn't, he's different in that respect from some past governors.
Yeah,
and you've covered a number of governors.
Right, yeah. I mean, no, he's very big on trying to build consensus and demonstrate, being able to demonstrate that Pennsylvanians that the state is moving forward in a positive direction. Some of the budget priorities that he's going to ask for, we believe, are things that are going to be easy for both parties to support, like more money for state police, continued investment in VOTEC education programs. There are Democratic priorities too, like the perennial an increase in the state's minimum wage level.
Look, thanks for the update. We'll have you back and we can continue to chat about other aspects of the Shapiro administration in particular. All right, a path to your financial well-being. It's always about money and the economy. We'll get to that soon.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
CrossState Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, our financial health is critically important. We're going to chat about that in a number of ways to help you improve your financial condition. Joining me to do that are a couple of credit union folks. We have Michael Thomas. He's the president and CEO of Service First Federal Credit Union, and Nicola Foggie. She's the chief regulatory officer with CrossState Credit Union Association and a frequent guest on the program. All right, well, let's start right from the very, very top. Talk about improving your financial health. What is financial well-being and how is that related to health?
Well, Terry, you think about it, we're just into the new year, and everyone thinks about their physical health. You set new goals, you're going to start with the gym. Well, the same with your financial health and wellness. You want to be sound and fit financially and to take those worries away. Lack of good, sound financial health can even impact your physical health. It can cause headaches, sleeplessness, and other more severe conditions.
Yeah. And Mike, there's a path to that that's important. I mean, it's sort of like almost anything else in life. You need to set goals. You need to follow those goals. They need to make sense. And in financial health, there is a regular route, I'll put it that way, or a path, as you point out.
Yeah, reaching out for resources is usually the best first step. At Service First, we have what are called CCUFCs, so Certified Credit Union Financial Counselors. It's always good to talk to somebody about your financial health. More often than not, we hear people are afraid or concerned or embarrassed to talk about their financial situation. But the first step is to literally just spend some time talking with somebody. If you're afraid to talk to a stranger at a financial institution, talk to a friend or a close family member. That's the best first step to getting yourself on the right track.
And there are other things in the information you provided to me. There are programs that can help with money management skills, and there are specifics that you need to perform in order to accomplish that. Correct? Create and stick to a budget, building, go ahead.
Yep, creating a budget is obviously a good first start. Learning how to build your credit score, reducing your debt, setting appropriate financial goals, and then the basic is how to start saving. Most people aren't even aware of how to build up their savings account.
And one thing, Terry, folks need to check with their employers or their benefits office, because many employers are realizing that along with that gym membership that is a benefit that they're including in their employee package, they're often offering financial wellness, financial education.
Good point.
Sources.
Yeah, and we need help. In other words, it's not easy to do if you're trying to do it alone. Is that correct?
Correct, and it's always good to have an accountability partner with anything that you do, and financial wellness is no different. Somebody that will tell you no when you want to make one of those big purchases that maybe isn't in your best interest.
Yeah, I won't, like buying a house or buying a car when you need to rethink that, or make sure.
Or think about that young person that's out on their own, and they may be juggling a rent, they may be juggling a new car payment, or a pre-owned car payment, hopefully, and their bills as a new apartment owner, and they need some guidance. So, sometimes it's easier to turn to someone a parent, just anyone else to share that financial burden that's upon you. But also the professionals are there for you as well.
Well, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about, you also say there are goals that should be set. Let's talk about those goals and how important they are to your financial well-being. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, we're talking about your financial well-being with the folks from the credit unions. And Michael Thomas, I want to start with you. When we talk about you have to set goals, that's critically important. You just can't aimlessly go about trying to accomplish financial well-being.
Yeah, you have to do a little homework. So you want to set goals that mean something to you, that align with the priorities in your life. So if you're a world traveler, start setting some goals that revolve around taking some of those trips that you wanted to get to. But the important thing is making sure that they're SMART goals. And SMART goals is something that we use in, I think, almost every industry. They are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So saying that you want to retire a millionaire in a week is probably not a relevant or timely goal. But if you say, I want to retire in 5 years, set some action plans on how to get that. In my mind, it's all about getting those little wins. So when you can cross off something on your action plan that will ultimately get you to where your goal is, that's
And it's
motivating.
also not just about short-term, but long-term.
Sure. Long-term goals include, so the key to this is savings. And you've heard of pots of money. People may call it rainy day. They may call it that, vacation fund, whatever it might be. Today is a good day to start. And, start small if you need to. Speak with your financial institution, your credit union, your bank, about even setting aside automatic debits out of your payroll to put that money away without thinking about it.
That's a great point, to automatically make sure a certain amount of money is put into a savings account or wherever you want to put it. on a regular basis so that it builds up over time.
And you're going to want to have more than one pot of money. And so you need that, savings for those everyday things or the things that that you need to do on a regular basis. You're going to want that rainy day fund, for those what ifs, but you need that emergency fund. So an emergency fund is a reserve that's specifically set aside for unplanned events, expenses, unintended consequences happen. And so you want to be ready for it. And so you want to talk about, if the roof gets a leak in it, you have, your car breaks down, you have an unexpected medical bill.
A sinking fund?
Oh, yeah. So a sinking fund is actually even a little different than an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. A sinking fund is a savings, but it's for a specific planned event. And I used an analogy earlier in the day. Say scuba diving's your hobby, and scuba diving can be quite an expensive hobby with the equipment. You travel to wherever you're scuba diving. You set aside a savings just for that, or you might set aside a savings for vacation, some other type of vacation, some other fund. So you sink your savings, you sink your money into something planned. It's a planned savings event.
Michael, this all gets complicated.
Yes.
It seems like it's very complicated for most of us, given what Nicola has just pointed out.
I think that's what prevents people from ultimately asking for help. So again, I'll go back to encouraging you to take that first step, which is talking to somebody. It's hard to tackle these problems on your own, especially if you're not in the industry or a finance professional. So talk to somebody. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to make you feel bad. You'd be surprised at how many people are in the same financial situation as you are. And all it takes is that first question of asking for help.
And a lot of people don't bother, they don't do it for a variety of reasons, I think.
They don't, and it's interesting having children myself. We started with them young, of even just understanding the value of earning money and saving, and then what you do with it and how you account for it. But young adults now, are taught how to use their finances in high school through a financial literacy class, in colleges. Matter of fact, credit unions actually go around to high schools and colleges and provide what we call a financial literacy fair. And that's where we help you budget, we help you try to simulate a life event and come to the conclusion of, can you afford this or can you not afford it? That's pretty much what it is, living within your means.
Yeah. I mean, over the years, we've had discussions about how much of that should actually be taught in the schools. Anytime you get into adding new subjects to the schools, that can get controversial.
Yeah,
What's your sense of that?
I think it's a basic life skill. I don't think money is going anywhere, and I don't think debt is going anywhere. So I don't see a reason why we shouldn't encourage these kids to learn at a younger age something that's going to impact them the rest of their life, and setting them up for a healthy future at an early age, because more often than not, they learn the hard way by getting themselves into credit card debt, and that's really where the journey begins for most people.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on a good point. Well, I want to thank you for coming in for this. Is an extremely important update, and you'll keep us posted. See you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.